So now we're going to move on to another session that has been hotly anticipated. Now, we introduced this last year, and what I'd like to just reiterate that story for those who weren't there. So back in 2022 at the AFRA event in Nairobi, I first met and interviewed Geert on the rooftop. It was beautiful at the Ole Sereni Hotel for the podcast. And we started to strike up a bit of a friendship and a bit of a conversation. Said, what can we do? What can we do together? And then I got to know exactly just how much he knows his stuff. And so we came up with a report last year, which was entitled Exploring the Horizons. And that was launched, that was premiered at Aviadev in Namibia last year. So I said, well, what I would like to do, because it's all about connectivity and it's all about showing you the biggest opportunities that exist to, from, and to an extent within Africa as well. It was incredibly well received. It's become we know it's now Teboho's Bible, so that's good. That's a good start. And it also achieved international coverage. So we were getting messages from the Airbus press team going, wow, we didn't expect this to happen. But it's become the home of that report. And what we want to do is do this every single year and update it. So let you know what the successes are and what what's still to be done. So I asked Geert if he'd come back and be kind enough to update it. I've had a sneak preview. Nobody else has. It's been under embargo. He made sure he gave me a printed version, so I couldn't share it with anybody. And you are the first globally to hear the findings. So I'm now going to, without further ado, invite Geert to come and join me on the stage. Massive round of applause and take some notes.
Thank you. All right. Thanks a lot, John. All right, can everybody understand me? Okay, very good. Well, people, it's a great pleasure and honor for me to be back and to present you the volume 2 of the Exploring the Horizons document, the report that Airbus produces in cooperation with Aviadev on unserved routes to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa. Actually, as we are all people working in airports and airlines in the room, or the majority of the people in this room, I wanted to test, can we quickly please scroll back to the slide I would like to first explain. So I would like to do a poll, just to see if everybody in this room is up to speed with the latest technology developments, with the latest or the capabilities of the latest products we have in our product portfolio. And for that, of course, we need to focus on the 321 XLR. You probably already guessed it, we brought a model of the 321 XLR, so this presentation will at least touch on the 321 XLR. Now, I want to invite you to participate in the poll. We will show you the QR code in a second. And the question is, what would be, in your opinion, the furthest destination the 321 XLR can serve starting from Zanzibar? All right? So, and there is a list of destinations in the poll. And actually, could we quickly switch back to the presentation? First, I want to show indeed what we have. So there's a couple of destinations in the list. And for each of these destinations, I gave an indication of what the distance is by mentioning the Great Circle distance in nautical miles next to it. All right? So do you believe the 321 XLR can fly to Harare? Then, of course, the answer is Harare. Do you believe it can fly to Johannesburg, or the whole list down up to and including Moscow? Now, pay attention. This can be a tricky question. Do you really believe the aircraft can go to Moscow, or would this be over the top? Right? I'll let you decide on that. Please take the time to do so. We can go to the poll right now and show the QR code if you want. And then we'll get back at the end of the presentation with the answer. All right? Very good. There it is. Okay. Shall we move on? Thank you very much for that. All right. Good. As I said, it's a great honor to be back and to present you the second issue of our report. Let me share with you that, honestly, we did not expect to see so many reactions after we issued the first volume last year. So we got feedback from many airlines in the room. We got feedback from industry professionals working in fleet and network planning who actually picked it up and came back with questions or remarks. And actually, months after the event, we still found it popping up in articles written by journalists. So thank you very much for all that. And it was indeed a main driver for us to be back and to produce this update. Now, to put things clear, and to be very clear on what we did, last year's report actually focused on data that were applicable for a period from December 2022 to November 2023. When I talk about data, we talk about traffic data and we talk about schedule data, so basically what flights are flown. This year's report goes from October 2023 to September 2024, and the reason for that is that we wanted to have a set of data available that covers both the traffic and the flights, and that these two periods correspond to each other. All right? So based on the data that we had available for both these data sets at the moment this report was produced, we could actually cover this period. All right? In order to be complete, our data sources for the traffic are Sabre, and for the schedule data, we used OAG, which are basically used by many people in this industry. Right. Now here it is. I will not question this year what is the most unserved routes, because most people will already know. This is the list if we look into unserved routes today to and from sub-Saharan Africa. So most important today is still Harare, London, followed by Johannesburg, Mumbai, which was already mentioned, Lagos, New York, Entebbe, London, Lagos, Toronto, Kinshasa, Dubai, etc., up to Johannesburg to Brussels. Now I hear you thinking already, yes, but Entebbe to London has entered into service. Yes, that's why I mentioned the period that we cover in this analysis. All right, I'll get back to that later in the presentation. Right, this being said, we can also have a look into what happens within the sub-Saharan African region. And indeed, the list is slightly different from the list that was shown yesterday in the presentation from our friends from Embraer. The reason for that is indeed the period that is covered in the analysis. All right? So we don't have Cape Town to Lusaka simply because the route was served in the period we covered. Nevertheless, Abidjan to Douala is the first one, Dakar to Libreville, the second one. It's actually a swap in position between the first and the second one of last year, but as you see, they're still unserved. I want to add a little note to that, because many people came to see me after my presentation last year to say, yeah, but Geert, you can fly from Abidjan to Douala. Because there is, for instance, an airline flying from Abidjan to Abuja and from Abuja to Douala. I said, yeah, okay, that's fine, but there's an intermediate stop, so that means that it is not served. It's an unserved destination. If there's an intermediate stop in it, we consider it unserved. All right? That being clear, let's move on and let's look at what was the real challenge in this. Because John called me in January this year and said, Geert, we want an update, you need to do this again. And I said, look, yeah, okay, good. Of course, I had a look at the data before he called me, and I said, like, well, John, there's a problem. Because it's all the same. Nothing really changed. So what shall I say? So I had this kind of real fear inside, like, what do I say when I'm back on stage? So therefore we said, like, let's dig a little bit deeper, and let's have a look at what happens below the surface. And the result is this. There's a lot to be said. Because we are in a very dynamic business environment, and we see, for instance, traffic on these unserved ONDs significantly increase in just 1 year time. We see that airlines have updated their networks, new routes were added, routes were removed, frequencies were adjusted, capacities were adjusted, etc. The result of all this is that passengers really start to behave differently, right? If there's another option to fly between A and B with another intermediate stop or another transit, which is more convenient than the one that existed before, then people will change. People do change, and that will be visible in the data that I will show later on. On top of that, we have fleet developments, new aircraft type entered into the fleet, we offer new onboard products, and last but not least, there's also shifting airline business models, right? I'm just thinking right now as I speak about, for instance, Norse entering the long-haul market between the UK and Cape Town. It's a new business product that enters in the market. Okay, it's not in the period that I cover in my presentation, but nevertheless, it needs to be taken into account. So all this together really shows that there's a lot to be said. And if you allow me, I'll talk you through a couple of examples. Right. Before doing so, let's first have a look at the growth that actually happened on each of these ONDs that we covered in our Unserved routes report. And when you look into these numbers, they are actually massive. Watch this. Lagos to Toronto, there's a year-on-year growth of about 28%. If you go to the unserved routes within Sub-Saharan Africa, look at what happened between Cape Town and Lagos. It's incredible. I actually nearly fell off my chair when I saw this. And of course, that's the reason why you start digging deeper, and I'll be very happy to share what we have on Cape Town, Lagos. Right. Now, it's one thing to look into what are the most important unserved routes based on OND traffic that is actually always connecting when traveling through these ONDs. The other thing is like, okay, if we know then what these most unserved routes are, how do they fit in between the other routes that actually are served? And are they up to speed, or do they compare or not? That's why I put in this chart. First, on the left-hand side, we see the routes, the unserved routes that we identified in the market to and from Sub-Saharan Africa. So the light blue bars are the unserved marks, the routes, and the dark blue bars are the served routes today. So just to put things in context, if, for instance, we take the example Harare to London, then you see that the OND traffic on this city pair is actually comparable to the OND traffic that we observe between Amsterdam and Johannesburg. And this route is working very well today, so therefore there's no reason why, at least from a traffic perspective, the route between Harare and London would not work. There's a lot of spaces in this chart. That means there's a lot of routes that are not on the chart, but that fit in between, all right? So all in all, my conclusion from that is that based on traffic, these unserved routes fit very well or line very well up with routes that are in service today. So from this perspective, there is no reason why these routes would not be operated. And actually, the same applies for the Sub-Saharan, or the Sub-Saharan region, yes, indeed, the ONDs within the region. So there, indeed, we also see that the observed traffic levels fit well in those observed on routes that work very well today. Right. This being said, let's have a closer look at Harare, London, because it's the most unserved routes, and also because, of course, there's a lot to be said. In a nutshell, the report is 108 pages, so if you want, you can definitely pick up a lot more details there. But what is happening on this route when we have to stay at the surface? First of all, the route between Harare and London, in terms of OND traffic, has increased by 5% on average since 2019, so the traffic on this route, all right? So that means that even when taking the COVID period into account and the whole slowdown of the industry in that period, if we ignore that and we simply look into how has traffic grown between 2019 and today, or at least the end of the period we evaluated, we came on 5% growth. That's significant. The last year, this traffic grew by 12%. All right? That's also very important. Now let's have a look at what happened here. If we break down the OND traffic carried by each of the carriers, what we see is that Ethiopian Airlines actually strongly reinforced their position in this market over the evaluated period. And then you can go deep, can you look deeper and you say like, okay, well, where is it coming from? And one part of the explanation is that indeed they increased the traffic they carried on the destination to London Heathrow. But watch this. Ethiopian Airlines decided to open a new route between Addis Ababa and London Gatwick. And watch this. By doing so, they significantly increased the traffic they capture traveling from Harare to London. All right? So this strategically chosen extra route in their network actually attracted a lot of traffic originating in Harare and traveling to London. Then, of course, we can ask, what is the reason for that? Well, here you go. Better connection, more choice to the traveler. flying to London Gatwick, which is much more the destination if people travel to London, and that was covered in one of the podcasts from John and Sean. And indeed, well, if you take all that into account, there's probably also an element of fares in it. However, fares were excluded from this study. I'm happy this is said to make sure that this is clear to everybody in the room. So therefore, you see, it's not impossible to actually capture a market, especially if you look into what happened here last year, because at that moment, Emirates was best positioned in that market. They actually covered the main share of the traffic. And what you can see is that by just a single move of Ethiopian Airlines, Emirates is actually quite under pressure in this market. All right? Good. If that is not interesting, people will certainly come and say like, yeah, Geert, but you know, it's Ethiopian Airlines. It's such a well-established airline. For them, it's just another route. If we are a small airline, it's much more difficult. I want to demonstrate that this is not the case, simply by showing this. This is Entebbe to London. And what do we see happen on this route? Watch this. This is Rwandair. Rwandair significantly increased their market share on Entebbe, London, during the evaluated period. And why is that? It's quite simple. They increased frequencies between Entebbe and Kigali, and they doubled the frequencies between Kigali and London, right? Simply by doing this kind of development in the network, in the frequencies, they actually drag all the traffic towards Kigali. And then from a geographical point of view, of course, it's very interesting to do so because the trajectory becomes much shorter and therefore much more convenient to the traveler. So even if you're a small airline, especially if you look here, what happens again to Emirates, these people are under pressure by Rwandair. Of course, Qatar is behind, they work together, they help each other, but watch this, this is a significant shift in the market. So all this traffic stimulation happens, and strategic move by a single small airline, just focusing on some key routes, can have significant effects. Right. What's new on this route? Everybody was thinking already about Uganda Airlines flying now non-stop to London. Yes, indeed, they launched a non-stop flight just a couple of weeks ago in May, using the 330-800. And watch this, they have 258 seats on board and they fly 4 times a week. Opening a route with 4 frequencies is quite an interesting move because that means there's a lot of capacity in the market. But watch their cabin layout. 20 business class seats, 28 premium economy class seats, and the majority economy class seats, obviously. But that means that they really focus on attracting the traffic that is prevailing on this OND, meaning the cost-conscious economy traveler. All right? Of course, it's too early to talk about the results. We actually want to wish them a lot of success and congratulate them with this route opening. And I'll be very happy to be back next year, if you allow me, John, to have also a look at these data then. Good. Thanks. The opportunity to come back on Johannesburg to Mumbai. Because if I can make statistics on the feedback we got last year, we had kind of 10% focusing on all the routes in the report, and then 90% of all the feedback came on Johannesburg, Mumbai. And in this 90% feedback, 99% of that was, yes, but Geert, the yields are so low, it doesn't make any sense, right? Good. Let's have a look at the traffic flows. Today, most people fly to Addis Ababa and then continue from there to Mumbai. Apart from that, we also see traffic going over Nairobi, Dubai, Doha, and Abu Dhabi. Guess what? We really clearly expected this before looking even in the data. But the feedback indeed came like, it's all Ethiopian Airlines, and it's all the Middle Eastern carriers, and it's low yield, so there's absolutely zero hope that this route will actually happen or will work. Now watch this. This is maybe today's situation, but if we project ourselves 15 years into the future, then what we should not forget is that India is forecasted to significantly grow, right? If we just look into population size, population in India is forecasted to grow by more than 200 million people, right? To give you an idea of what that means, that's the population of Brazil. Right? So in 20 years from now, or in 15, 20 years from now, population in India could be the population as it is right now, with Brazil on top. That's one thing. The second thing, the middle class section in India is forecasted to grow by 460 million people or even more. That is the people that travel, that are looking for air transport. And therefore, this is a significant development. If you see that 467 is, of course, larger than 204, that means that the part of population that is looking to travel will significantly increase. And just to put numbers in perspective, today the population of the entire European Union is 450 million people. All right? I think that says a lot, isn't it? Now, on top of that, India is forecasted to become the third most important economy in the world by 2035, sorry. And that means that more business will be generated in trading with these people, in doing business, services, etc. So that will also be a stimulator for extra traffic. The BRICS countries. I hear you thinking, yes, it's all governmental, it's all top level, this will have zero effect on traffic. Well, guess what? Between 2015 and 2019, so the period before the COVID period, the O&D traffic between all the BRICS countries increased by 12% every year. All right? Since COVID, this trend has picked up again, and if we project into the future, especially with the importance the BRICS countries are gaining in the current geopolitical context, we believe that this will also be a significant driver for extra traffic. And then last but not least, specifically between India and South Africa, there's an important development because the requirements to get a visa for the Indian people has been lowered or has been made more easy to obtain their visa. And as such, we also expect that this will generate more traffic. So all in all, if we consider this market, Johannesburg to Mumbai, we can say, yes, indeed, maybe indeed, historically seen, there was no real reason. But watch this. Gear up for a changing market. Please gear up for changing traffic split, meaning more premium traffic, changing customer behavior and expectation. So a non-stop flight in this market for us is definitely a logical fit. And if you ask me personally, it's a must-do. So the first mover, in my opinion, will definitely be right. This being said, let's now have a look at Cape Town, Lagos. I would like to highlight a couple more developments in that market, because look what happened here. Between 2019 and 2014, the growth was only 1%. That means that right now, the market between Cape Town and Lagos is back to where it was before COVID. Year-on-year growth on that market was 67%. And why is that? It's because people started traveling more between Cape Town to Lagos via Luanda. And the reason for that is that TAG indeed increased frequencies, both on their flights from Cape Town to Luanda, which they increased to a daily service, and from Luanda to Lagos. Currently, the last information I saw is that they are at 5 frequencies every week. So that means that also, if you look on the geography, it's quite a convenient connection. And if you can offer this on a daily basis or a close to daily basis, then that becomes an important connection. Now watch this. Simply put, increasing frequencies, giving more choice to your traveler is definitely driving your passenger or your traffic and indeed your market share. This being said, we should not forget that beyond the evaluation period, TAG actually put the A220 on this route. They fly the A220 both to Cape Town and to Lagos. So that's another attractive point. Unfortunately, it was after the moment this study was cut off. And, okay, good, we'll be able to be back next year and possibly comment on that. Cape Town to Lagos doesn't end there. Why not? Because there's still no non-stop flight, right? First of all, what we need to consider is that traffic will further grow. We're in a growing industry, so why would Cape Town to Lagos not grow any further? Secondly, what we should not forget is that the business or the traffic split on this route is quite extraordinary in an African context. Watch this, 85% is economy travel, but 15% is premium traffic. To put things in context, if we take all intra-African flights today, and if we look into the split between economy and business travel, then what we see is typically a split of 4% premium travel and 96% economy travel. So this route, therefore, is significantly different, all right? That means if you can start a non-stop flight between Cape Town and Lagos, you will certainly serve that kind of traffic segment. Because these are business people, these are people who want to have flexibility. A non-stop flight on a daily basis is kind of the best you can get, right? That's where we see a lot of opportunity or a lot of potential for the 321 XLR, right? The latest product in our portfolio, because it offers an unmatched range capacity combination. It's a long-haul route opener, so perfectly fit for this kind of routes. And the advantage is that, as I just mentioned, if you want to serve that premium segment, you offer best a daily service, right? So you can build up frequencies without exploding the capacity on the route. And then, okay, we're in an African context, and indeed, there's a lot of luggage to be carried. So therefore, people will say, yeah, but what about the luggage? And what about the cargo? Because there's also a lot of cargo potential on this route. You won't fit that on a 321 XLR. Well, there we go. In our product portfolio, we can combine 321 XLRs with 330 operations or 350 operations if you want. And we can actually make the same pilots or the same pool of pilots flying both the 321 XLR and the wide-body aircraft. So that means that we can offer a flexibility in that, for instance, if an airline decides to fly a 321 XLR on the route one day, and the next day a 330 to carry the cargo, then the pilots who remain in the old station to spend the night and to get their rest, well, these pilots who flew in the 321 XLR, they can fly back the 330 that comes in the following day. That means a significant operational flexibility, which is really appreciated by many airlines that already do this today. And then, of course, yeah, I understand you will say, Geert, you're talking a lot about 321 XLR, but that is because there's a lot to be said about the 321 XLR, because it doesn't end here. Watch this. Abidjan, Johannesburg is another OND where we see significant potential for the 321 XLR. Kinshasa to Dubai is a route that pops up in the top 10 this year, which is growing massively, which has also this kind of premium traffic split, which also looks for high-frequency operations, and that's where we see this aircraft popping up. So all in all, the 321 XLR for us, for Africa, we are definitely ready for a new area in commercial transport, and we definitely believe that it will unlock a lot of new routes inside the continent. I have to say this because in the end, I'm a marketeer. It's not because you buy a 321 XLR or because you start operating a 321 XLR that you have to dispatch it only on long-haul routes, all right? You can perfectly fly the aircraft on shorter routes as well. And I'm particularly thinking, for instance, about Cape Town to Johannesburg, which is a high-demand route. Well, if you put such an aircraft in the peak moment of the day, you can certainly attract a lot of traffic there too. Right, let's go back to the poll. I hope everybody had the opportunity to look into it and to scan the code and to also answer. So there we go. What do we see? We see that most people in the room think that the aircraft can fly to Moscow, all right? Abidjan and Harare, luckily nobody thinks that Harare is the ultimate distance the aircraft can fly, because indeed, if we can go back to the presentation. Yep, there we go. I'll show you what the answer is. Today we are in Tanzania, in Zanzibar, all right? And we took this airport to depart from. All the destinations in the blue circle are within range of the 321 XLR. That means indeed that Moscow is the right answer. You can fly from Zanzibar to Moscow. By the way, based on typical airline rules that we use for evaluations in Africa. So this is not the kind of most important or most best possible case. It's taking the weight of passengers that airlines ask us to consider in our performance evaluations into account, and it's based on typical evaluation rules. All right, sorry. Right, so all in all, look at this, the aircraft from Zanzibar can easily fly 9 hours and 15 minutes. Right. This being said, we can come back to what is up for next year. Because as I said, we ended our study here now in September 2024. Since then, Delta Airlines has started flying the 330-900 on Lagos to New York. They did so during a fixed period of a couple of months between December 2024 and March 2025. When we're back next year, we'll be able to comment on that route. We mentioned Uganda Airlines flying now to London, and on top of that, Kenya Airways also started flying between Douala and Abidjan on one of the tag-end flights between Nairobi and Douala. So they fly from Nairobi to Douala, and then they continue to Abidjan. So there too we'll be able to possibly look into the results that come out. Right, in conclusion, we're definitely in a very dynamic environment, and it's not because the top 10 of routes is quite similar to what happened last year that there's no changes to be taken into account or that there's no movements happening in the market. So therefore, we need to stay on top of things. We need to be aware of what is happening in the market, and we need to be flexible as an airline to act quickly. Secondly, well, the list of unserved city pairs, the traffic that we put in context, the market developments, the passenger behaviors that we see, that is all relevant, and it kind of reinforces the case to really study these routes and to study the potential of these routes. Last but not least, new non-stop flights can be launched based on, first of all, observed traffic levels to start from. Secondly, the growth on the routes, which is forecasted for the future, the stimulation that we will get on top of the existing traffic simply by having a non-stop flight, new connecting traffic, for instance, Cape Town to Lagos, to come back on that example. If a flight is launched from Cape Town to Lagos, you can expect to see a lot of connecting traffic on that route as well, because there's no flight between Cape Town and the whole region or sub-region of West Africa today. Last but not least, we need to stay on top of the capabilities and the performance of the latest generation products, because they can really bring a shift in the market as well. They can make things possible that before were not possible at all. Right. Now here it comes, people. This is the report that I produced for this year's conference. I want to thank John and Aviadev for giving us the opportunity to be back and to present this to you. Please scan the QR code, have a look at the report. If there's any remarks or questions, you can certainly come back to us, and we'll be happy to discuss that with you. And now, as promised, as John mentioned a couple of times, we have this 321 XLR model, which we would like to hand out now in a lucky draw. So we invited people in the room to have their business cards in the little basket that we have. And I would like to invite now my colleagues to come up to the stage and actually do the lucky draw. All right, shall we go in the front here? All right. Maybe come here, people. Yeah, we repeated it a couple of times, people, so it's quite late to know, put your business card in there. All right, let's give it 30 seconds. I'm watching it. 20. This was expected, by the way, huh? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, a half, 0.1. Okay, we stop here. Thank you very much. Thanks, people. All right.
Okay.
Oh, yes, indeed. Try to mix it, indeed. Yeah. So that means all the last ones are now at the bottom. All right, there we go. All right. Before we do this, sorry, there's one final remark I want to make. The person must be in the room at this moment. So we close the doors. Nobody is coming in anymore. All right? Okay, very good. Go ahead, Fanny. All right. Okay, I'll mention that. All right. Wow. I don't know if I pronounced this correctly. Excuse me if that is the case. But we have somebody called Zoelizoa Rajonson. Could you please come on stage? All right. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. I have the honor to even give it to you. Here you go, madam.
Thank you so much.
Your pleasure. Can we make a picture? Can you stay on stage? We can make a picture. All right. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. So please download the report, have a look at it, and if you have any questions or remarks, I'll be happy to be back to you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.